How's everybody doing? We ready for Thanksgiving? Okay. Where's
Come on up, everybody. Don't be shy.
Director Sterling? Y'all come on in. There's a big gap. Y'all kind of fill it in because I don't know if the cameras are going to catch everybody. Just come in a little bit, guys. Come in a little bit. Come in. Out there. Come in a little bit. All right. Okay, we ready? Greetings, everyone. I want to welcome you here today. I am actually excited that I am here to announce the successful outcome of multiple state grand jury investigations supported by multiple agencies in multiple jurisdictions. These investigations have been supported by ongoing partnerships with the State Law Enforcement Division, the South Carolina Department of Corrections, and a number of other local and state agencies that you'll hear about in just a moment. Over the last few years, we have had a number of law enforcement officials abuse their power within the prison system. We have also struggled with the inability to prevent contraband cell phones from getting into our prisons. The combination of public corruption and contraband cell phones has contributed to violent crimes, drug trafficking, child sex crimes, and other crimes being committed against our citizens. These investigations are part of our ongoing efforts to say no more. Today's announcement involves 3 separate state grand jury investigations that have been ongoing and supported by our local and state partners. And I can tell you right now, they would not be successful without the people you're about to hear from. The first investigation is known as Clean Sweep. It involves multi-count indictments of 4 individuals who are alleged to have engaged in criminal sexual conduct with a minor first degree, sexual exploitation of a minor first degree, criminal conspiracy, misconduct in office, and obstruction of justice. 2 of the individuals in this investigation involve a sworn correctional officer and a South Carolina Department of Corrections employee. Here are the facts. Jacob Lance is currently incarcerated at Lee Correctional Institution. Mr. Lance was able to use contraband cell phones to communicate with his girlfriend, Abby Eldier, whom he directed and encouraged to engage in sex acts with a minor child under the age of 11. Ms. Eldiers recorded the sex acts on her cell phone and sent those videos to Mr. Lance, who was using a contraband cell phone in prison. Both Mr. Lance and Ms. Eldier have each been indicted with 5 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor first degree, which carries a 25-year to life sentence. They have 10 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, which carries 3 to 20 years, and 1 count of criminal conspiracy, which carries up to 5 years. 2 other individuals in this investigation were also involved. Brittany Welch is a correctional officer at Lee Correctional Institution. She is alleged to have enabled and or provided access to these contraband cell phones. Ms. Welch is also alleged to have tipped off inmates on pre-planned agency contraband searches, as well as helped to dispose of or conceal contraband or weapons. Brian Kelly, the other individual, is a food service supervisor at Lee Correctional Institution. He is alleged to have participated in the illegal contraband trade and helped inmates acquire these cell phones. Additionally, he has been arrested for 10 counts of possession of child sexual abuse material that was discovered as a result of this investigation. Ms. Welch has been indicted for misconduct in office, which carries up to 10 years, obstruction of justice, also up to 10 years. Mr. Keeley has been indicted for criminal conspiracy, up to 5 years, furnishing contraband to an inmate, which carries 1 to 10 years, and sexual exploitation of a minor, third degree, which carries 0 to 10 years. The second investigation that I'm going to talk about was also known as Block Party. It involved several multi-count indictments of 2 individuals who were at the time correctional officers at Broad River Correctional Institution. The first individual is Alexis Tucker. Ms. Tucker is alleged, while working at Broad River Correctional Institution, to have tried to sneak in 217 grams of cocaine, 605 grams of methamphetamine, and approximately 3,249 grams of marijuana. Ms. Tucker has been indicted with trafficking cocaine 200 to 400 grams, which carries a 25-year sentence. Trafficking methamphetamine 400 or more grams, also a 25-year sentence. Possession with intent to distribute marijuana, which carries up to 5 years. Furnishing contraband to an inmate, up to 5 years. Misconduct in office, up to 10 years. And criminal conspiracy, which carries up to 5 years. The next individual in the block party investigation is Jorge Romero Navarro. Mr. Romero Navarro was a lieutenant at the South Carolina Department of Corrections at the time of his alleged conduct. He is alleged to have supported Ms. Tucker in her efforts to sneak in all of that drug contraband I just listed. Mr. Romero Navarro has been indicted with misconduct in office and criminal conspiracies. Both of those carry up to 5 years in prison. The third investigation is known as Gatekeeper. It involves new indictments of 3 correctional officers alleged to have engaged in misconduct in office while working in the McCormick Correctional Institution. The first, Miss Whitney Thurmond, was a lieutenant and acting captain at the time of her alleged conduct. Dante Parks and Brandon Taylor were both correctional officers at the time of their alleged conduct. These 3 correctional officers alleged to have sneaked in packages on behalf of inmates and would be paid through money payment apps. This investigation also indicted 5 other individuals, which we announced this past July. That announcement involved 4 correctional officers and a corrections medical employee. These 5 individuals were indicted for various offenses, including misconduct in office, sexual conduct with an inmate, criminal conspiracy, money laundering, trafficking meth, unlawful possession of prescription medications, among other offenses. Now, I want to say this. All of the individuals that I have just mentioned who have either been indicted or charged are presumed innocent until they are proven guilty in a court of law. These are allegations at this time. I would like to now talk about our partners and staff who made these 3 investigations and their predicate investigations possible. And again, the partnership that we have with the State Law Enforcement Division, the Department of Corrections, as well as several local sheriff's offices and police departments is made our job so much easier. The professionalism of the men and women with these respective agencies has really made a difference when it comes to dealing with drug cartel and illicit drugs coming in through the prison systems, the public corruption that you're seeing by some of these local officers, as well as now, unfortunately, criminal sexual acts committed by children that were perpetuated and facilitated from behind bars. We couldn't have caught this, we could not have prosecuted or indicted this without the support. What is remarkable about this investigation, or these investigations, is that this is unparalleled cooperation between the South Carolina Attorney General's office and all of the people standing up here in the agencies they represent. Rooting out corruption, drug trafficking, and worst of all, child sex crimes could not have happened without the support and dedication of so many people. I want to thank, first, I don't know if they're here today, but the Department of Homeland Security was a federal partner who aided in this investigation. I want to obviously thank Chief Mark Keel with with the State Law Enforcement Division. My good friend, my colleague, partner in this, Director Brian Sterling with the South Carolina Department of Corrections, who you'll hear from next, who, by the way, has been a leading voice, not locally, but nationally, on the need to jam cell phones and have that technology allowed through federal regulation and or statute. And I want to thank him for his leadership with corrections officials from around the country. Also, the Inspector General with the South Carolina Department of Corrections, Frank Kelly, and his team, they were incredibly helpful in this investigation. I don't know if he made it in, but the 13th Circuit Solicitor's Office, I know Solicitor Wilkins was possibly going to be here, but his agency and his staff were incredibly helpful. I want to thank the Simpsonville Police Department, the Lee County Sheriff's Office, the Sumter County Sheriff's Office, and of course the members of the South Carolina Attorney General's Office, my staff, my team, who run the State Grand Jury Division. I truly want to thank them because I know firsthand how good they are at their jobs. And of course, they have had a very busy year, as many of you know. The cases that I've just talked about and the charges and the indictments, they're going to be prosecuted by the State Grand Jury Division Chief Attorney Creighton Waters, standing to my left, Assistant Deputy Attorney General David Fernandez, Special Assistant Attorney General Stephen Lunsford, and Special Assistant Attorney General Margaret Scott. I also want to thank Investigator Grubbs and the ICAC team, our Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force team in the AG's office. We couldn't have done it without them either. Again, so many people contributing so much to make these arrests and these indictments possible. Again, enough is enough, and I can't underscore that enough. If you're in the prison system and you're committing these crimes, we're coming for you. And another thing I want to make abundantly clear, people behind prison can be just as dangerous behind those walls as they are in front of those walls if we can't jam the cell phones and if we can't stop the enabling by some of these corrupt officials. And the vast majority of men and women in the prison system are honorable people. I know Director Sterling will talk about them in a minute, but every once in a while you'll find a bad apple who makes it possible to make life more dangerous out in our communities because of the conduct and the things they're engaging in behind prison walls. At this time, I would like to invite Director Sterling to come up here to make a few brief remarks, and he will be followed by Creighton Waters, and then I'll close out.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Sterling, Director of South Carolina Department of Corrections. I want to thank the men and women standing behind me, the lawyers, the Attorney General's Office, SLED, our investigators, 13th Circuit Solicitor's Office, Homeland Security, and if I missed anybody, the Attorney General listed the folks that I want to thank. We've been warning about this day for a very long time. The Attorney General and I have, and others have, that we had the largest RICO case in state history being run out of a prison. We've had suicides by a veteran. We've had a correctional officer shot at his house. We've been telling you that this is a problem over and over again. And frankly, to a certain extent, it's fallen on deaf ears in Washington, D.C. Can't even get a hearing. Can't get anybody to listen to Captain Johnson, listen to the Jared Johns family. I mean, that's all I'm asking for. So we went to work. The Attorney General was involved in this, getting other AGs from around the country. They saw what a problem this was. When folks go to prison, it's supposed to be for rehabilitation and public safety and punishment, being sentenced to prison. But the public safety aspect of it is gone in this day and age with technology, with cell phones. I've said it over and over again, the most dangerous thing that an inmate can have is a cell phone because they can reach out and touch someone and hurt someone. And we see a real live victim today in this young lady who, the allegations are horrific. I've said before, the allegations in that grand jury investigation are frankly disgusting. But for the cell phone, this wouldn't have happened. I saw that. I saw her picture, and I won't forget it, ever. My grandfather was a Boston policeman for a very long time. He used to tell me two things. The most dangerous situation for a law enforcement officer is a criminal domestic violence case, and the thing you don't forget are the children victims. I will never, ever forget that poor child's face that I saw. I immediately called Frank Kelly and said, who's my Inspector General, and said, this has to stop. He came up with a plan, and we've seen that plan in action. We saw the bust at Lee where we went in. We didn't tell anybody we were coming, and we came in and we hit that place, and we executed some arrest warrants, and you're seeing the results of those today, grand jury indictments. We searched 228 cars coming in 2 weeks ago, everybody coming into corrections. I'm sorry, that's not a search, but it's basically the dogs went around the cars, and if we had a hit, then we pulled people out and we searched those cars. We're sending a message to our staff. It's called zero tolerance. We're not going to allow you to come and work at the Department of Corrections and swear an oath and be dirty. We're not going to let it happen. We're going to find you. We're watching you. One of these cases, our CERT team saw something that seemed odd. Someone came down to search someone at the front gate that they shouldn't have been there, and you saw the indictment on that today. We're able to watch our prisons, our front gates, and elsewhere 24/7. It's being monitored. We installed this a couple of years ago, and if you have bad intent coming to work at the Department of Corrections, we're going to find you, we're going to charge you, and hopefully the courts, if you're convicted, are going to send you to prison. again, and I'm going to talk about this again, the cell phones are the thing that allow this to happen. They allow inmates to coordinate contraband. They allow inmates to hurt our citizens. So what are we doing about it? A couple of months ago, or a month or two ago, I think it was in July, the FCC announced a new order that will allow us to identify the IMEI number, International Mobile Identifier number of these cell phones. So far at Lee Correctional, since July 29th, we have identified and shut off 790 of these phones. There's about 1,000 inmates at Lee. I mean, it's almost one phone per inmate. How do I know this is working? We did a search one time after this happened, and the inmates were literally taking their cell phones, their $6,000 cell phones, that's how much it costs, and sliding it under the door because they didn't want to catch a cell phone charge on a device that was basically a brick. The other way I know it's working is our legitimate phone calls, the phone calls that they can make for 5.5 cents a minute, have gone up almost 70% since this time. That's why it's working. In my budget request to Governor McMaster, I've asked for money for this system, these systems to be put in all of our prisons. So it's about $1 million to start the system, and then it's a little bit more than that, about $1 million a year. So it's about, I think we're asking for about 12. So maybe it's $500,000 per institution, $1 million to start it. I'm hoping the General Assembly will see this. I know they've heard this year after year. I know they've heard it from their constituents. They're going to hear it from the Attorney General and myself again, and they're hearing it today. We need this money to be able to install this technology to shut these phones off. It appears to be working. We've got a couple of people we're testing. We're going to be testing it at upstate prison soon. We're testing at Lee, and then we have a mobile solution that we're going to test, and we're going to see which one works. We're going to bid it out, go through the procurement process as we have to, and then start installing these systems. Again, I want to thank our folks. I want to thank our prosecutors. I want to thank our partners. We wouldn't be here today without their hard work. But some of these allegations are just very disturbing. I mean, just anybody that was in court today, I have no words. I mean, and these are allegations, but I mean, I've seen a lot in my time as Director of Department of Corrections. Today was a day I will never forget, and I think everybody that was in court today probably feels the same way. Thank you, Attorney General, and I'll turn it over to Creighton.
One second. Do you want to explain then the difference between what you're implementing and what the federal government is presenting?
I do.
You did?
I do. No, I have not, but I will.
Do you want to?
Yes, thank you. Good suggestion by the Attorney General. So the difference between jamming is which is what I've been calling, is basically you put a curtain over the prison and you deny service to those cell phones. That's what jamming is. The federal prisons, we've got a prison, Bennettsville, and there's a federal prison right across the street, literally right across the street. We can't jam, but they can jam. I know they're testing this jamming at 5 federal prisons across the country. I think one is in Atlanta. But we can't jam, but they can jam. So that would deny service. We would not have to find the phone and turn it off. What we're doing with the IMEI is we are identifying the phone, the International Mobile Identifier, which is actually how you make the phone call. It's not your cell phone number. It's how they connect the phones in their system. We're identifying that, and then we're turning it over to the carriers. Carriers have 2 days to deny service to that phone. The carriers have not been our friend in this fight against jamming, but they have been responsive, I should say, with turning these phones off. There has been no problems with that at all. They've done a great job. They have been good partners. And if I could just give a little bit of history how this got here, how we got here. We had several meetings across the country, frankly, with corrections directors, and then we went to Washington, D.C. We had a field hearing here. Governor Haley testified in front of that. Governor McMaster then wrote some letters, asked Senator Graham to file some legislation. I know the Attorney General did that also. And then we had a big meeting in D.C. with the FBI, Justice Department, and FCC and others. And it kind of came from that. And then we had one-offs with a group of corrections directors from the country and the industry. They were 100% against jamming. They said, what about this IMEI? We can add these to a list and shut these off. It's not the stolen phone database, but it's the same type of thing where if your phone's stolen, you would call Verizon or AT&T and say, hey, my phone has been stolen. They would then add it to a stolen phone database and they would shut it off. I again say this is not the stolen phone database. They are not adding it to the stolen phone database. What they're doing is they're adding it to a contraband phone, basically database, and shutting these phones off. That is the difference. How'd I do?
Great.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Creighton Waters. I'm the chief attorney of the state grand jury, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the state grand jury and these partnerships that we have up here. The state grand jury has really historically been the glue that sort of holds these sort of multi-agency partnerships together so that we're all able to punch much harder above our weight class than we could individually. And one of the things in doing the complex narcotics trafficking and gang cases that we've been doing in the state grand jury for years was we started to realize that in every one of those major investigations there was at least some respect. The criminality, the leadership of these narcotics operations, of these gang criminality was going back to leadership within the prisons. And we came to the conclusion that we cannot continue to send people to prison for double digits and not do something to help the problem. And so what we did was reach out to Director Sterling and put in place a partnership whereby we are able to deputize SCDC attorneys to essentially serve as prosecutors in this case, and they've been instrumental. We have Margaret Scott and Steve Lunsford up here who have been instrumental in doing that. I also want to mention Jennifer McKellar, who's another person, one of the AG staff, who's been working so hard on this case. But ultimately, that's really what excites me about this particular result here today is you're seeing good results from that partnership. You're seeing these two agencies work together along with other local and federal partners to make a difference. And I want to echo this because I've gotten up here as well at many of these press conferences and we've talked about the problems of cell phones and how much significant criminality emanates from the prisons with the cell phones. And we've been singing that tune for a long time. We've been talking about COs being shot. We've been talking about drugs. We've been talking about gangs. But this time it's different. This time we have a child that was victimized in the most horrible way possible. And I have some words for that. Those words are, we served him today with notice of intent to seek life without parole. We are coming hard against that individual, and there will be accountability for anyone who was involved in that. We take this so seriously, but I can't imagine a situation that highlights more the need for the solutions that the Attorney General and Director Sterling talked about than the fact that we have a child victimized from within the prison. We tell people when we put these individuals in prison that we're protecting society, we're protecting you. And we didn't because of the limitations that are put on us. So I echo Director Sterling's call for money from the legislature to put in place these new systems. But I also echo the call from the FCC in Washington, D.C. to provide more solutions for us to fight this problem so that we can ensure that when we do put a cartel drug trafficker away or a murderer away, or a child molester away, that they can't keep doing those crimes from behind bars. And that's what this partnership is about. I really want to thank everyone here. SLED, SCDC in particular are the main partners on this, the 13th Circuit. But this partnership is working. And so we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to look for other agencies that we can partner with so that we can take the state grand jury and really make a difference. Thank y'all.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up, but in closing, the combination of contraband cell phones coupled with corrupt prison officials are contributing to a lot more. They're contributing to riots, gang activity, collusion with Mexican drug cartels who are trafficking into this country and into this state. It's contributing to horrible, heinous acts against small children, and it's got to stop. And we need those in the federal government to, I think, drop one word into a federal statute to give state prisons the ability to drop that iron curtain over prisons. And we're going to come hard as we possibly can with the powers given to us under the state constitution and state law. And we're going to wield the state grand jury with our state and federal partners to go after those who are abusing their power in the system. And we're going to do everything we can to end it. So with that, I want to thank all of you for being here today. We are happy collectively to answer any questions you may have. We'll obviously make ourselves available.
How frustrating is it that you have people behind bars but they're still committing crimes?
Well, I think when Brian and I both started this job, I had a lot more hair and his hair was a lot darker. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, it is incredibly frustrating when we keep going to folks at in the federal government and we keep saying, if we can just drop this word in, we can just do one tweak to a federal statute that allows us to do what is already being done in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, we can eliminate so much drug activity, so much gang activity, so much human trafficking activity, so much corruption. But the fact that we just get so much resistance over one simple word that allows us to do something that other prisons are doing is very frustrating. And so we have to go in there, and instead of just blocking it all out, we have to go in there in like surgical strike teams with all of these partner agencies at the local and state level, and we have to go in there and we have to take these people out onesies and twosies, like whack-a-mole is what it feels like to me. And it's incredibly frustrating, and honestly, it ticks me off. I'm sure it ticks off everyone up here, but that's where we are, and we're going to continue to do that until people in the federal government get off their butts and do what they're supposed to do. Oh, please.
So I was listening to a member of Congress, high-ranking member of Congress the other day, talking about fentanyl and how we need to close the border. And that's a federal issue. But one of the things I wanted to ask that Congressman was, why aren't you for jamming cell phones? Why don't you have a hearing on this? Because 100% the fentanyl is being made in China and Mexico. And then the folks that are incarcerated in South Carolina for drug trafficking, similar crimes, they go to prison and they're able to do the same thing and make a lot of money. And they're coordinating with these folks in Mexico, these cartels, and they're killing our citizens. Fentanyl is so dangerous. I mean, we had some we found in the prison a while back, and they're found in prisons, but it's so dangerous. They're killing our children. And there's a simple solution out there to stop a lot of this. Got a sheriff in Chester who said that, you know, cell phones are the biggest public safety threat that we face. And he used to be with SLED, and he was head of the drug area at SLED, that we face in South Carolina and the United States. I mean, they're killing our children by these cell phones, by trafficking fentanyl into the United States and coordinating and making money after these folks behind me work very hard in very dangerous conditions to convict these folks, and they're sent to prison for public safety. It's nonsensical to me. And to answer your question, frustrating is not the word, dangerous is the word. And we're seeing the results of that today.
Yeah, and these phones, they're not just putting correctional officers' lives at risk and safety at risk and each other at risk. People out in our communities. Several years ago, y'all remember the riots? Cell phone at the heart of that. You know, the last couple of years, there's been a number of state grand jury cases where we've had tons and tons of meth, fentanyl, illicit drugs, weapons coming in over the southern border in collaboration and coordination with Mexican drug cartels, with people who were communicating with inmates in the prison system, and it's pouring into the upstate and throughout all of South Carolina. It's feeding a much horrible problem. And eliminating the ability for them to use cell phones would make our lives and our jobs so much easier and our state so much safer. That was a long long answer to a short question, but it's important for us to hammer that home. Any other?
What's the word that needs to be added to the federal statute?
State. It says feds can jam, states cannot. So it allows the federal government, any federal agency to jam. A couple of years ago, I was designated as a deputy U.S. Marshal, and we had that test at Broad River, the first one in the country that was a live test, and that worked very, very well. We've proven it can work. We've proven it's safe. We've proven there's no bleed over. It's nonsensical that they won't do this. However, they did come up with this other solution, and it appears to be working. But this has been over a decade's worth of efforts by a lot of people standing before you and in Washington and here.
I want to thank everyone for being here. I hope all of you have a very happy Thanksgiving weekend, and be safe, and thank you for covering this. We appreciate you. We consider you a stakeholder and a partner in this as well, because if people don't know about it, they don't get angry. If they don't get angry, politicians in D.C. don't listen. So thank you for your role as well. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate you being here. Good job. Dave. Thank you, sir.
Good to see you. Yeah, absolutely. Glad y'all are here.